No one noticed when the town began to vanish. Not at first. At 11:47 p.m. the last light flickered on Maple Street. Mrs. Eleanor Whitby, 72 years old and nearly blind in her left eye, turned off her bedside lamp and settled beneath a quilt she'd sewn herself decades earlier. Outside her window, the wind hummed through the telephone wires, carrying with it the familiar, comforting sound of a place that had existed exactly as it was for more than a century. At 11:48 p.m., the clocks stopped. Every single one of them. The church bell never rang midnight. The train that passed through, twice a week, never arrived. The radio stations dissolved into static, and somewhere beyond the tree line, where the forest pressed against the town like a patient observer, something shifted. By morning, the town of Hollow Creek no longer existed. Hollow Creek was not the kind of town that appeared on maps people studied. It didn't have landmarks, tourist attractions, or a skyline worth photographing. It existed between highways, nestled in a shallow valley where fog lingered longer than it should have. People were born there. People died there. And most people never left. The town had one grocery store, one school, one gas station, and one bar that smelled perpetually of old wood and regret. Everyone knew everyone, or at least pretended to. Secrets survived there the way moss survives, on stone quietly, patiently. Mayor Thomas Grady used to say Hollow Creek was too small for trouble. He'd repeated every 4th of July while standing beneath the crooked flagpole in the town square. No one argued with him. But trouble doesn't announce itself. It waits. The first sign was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the calm-before-sleep kind. It was a hollow silence, as if sound itself had stepped away. Jack Mercer felt it while locking up the gas station. He paused, keys in hand, because something felt wrong. The crickets had stopped. The distant hum of traffic on Route 9 was gone. Jack looked up at the sky. The stars seemed dimmer. He laughed it off, muttering about needing sleep. He had an early shift the next morning, Sami Hassal ways. Jack never made it home. None of them did. At 6:12 a.m., a state trooper named Daniel Reyes drove down County Road 14, responding to a routine welfare check. A delivery truck had failed to report back, last pinged near Hollow Creek. Reyes expected a sleepy town just beginning to wake. Instead, he found nothing. No houses, no streets, no gas station, no church. Just a wide, open field. The road ended abruptly, as if it had been erased with a careless swipe. Grass covered everything. Thick, dew-soaked grass that looked old, undisturbed, as though nothing had ever been built there at all. Reyes stepped out of his cruiser slowly. "This isn't possible," he whispered. His radio crackled. No signal. Authorities arrived within hours. Then scientists, then men who refused to give their names. Satellite images were pulled. Maps were checked. Records were reviewed. Hollow Creek had existed. Property, deeds, birth certificates, tax, records, school photos. And yet, there was no physical trace left behind. No rubble, no burn marks, no foundations. Even the cemetery was gone. But then they found something. Near the center of the field, partially embedded in the soil, lay a single object, a child's shoe. Pink. Scuffed. The sole worn thin. Still warm. As news spread, people began to remember things they had ignored before. A teacher recalled a student who once asked, "What happens if a place is forgotten while people are still inside it?" A librarian remembered a journal donated years earlier, unsigned, that described Hollow Creek as temporary. An old man in the next county swore his grandfather used to warn him never to stay in the valley after dark. "They said the land doesn't like being watched," he told a reporter. "Said it closes its eyes." 3 days after the disappearance, a voicemail surfaced. It had been left at 11:49 p.m., just 1 minute after the clock stopped. The caller ID read, "Hollow Creek Public School." The message was distorted, layered with static, but a child's voice came through clearly. "Mom," the voice whispered, "everyone's gone. The doors won't open. The windows, they're not there anymore." There was a pause. Then, quieter. It's so quiet The recording ended with a sound no one could identify, something like wind moving through a narrow space, followed by a soft, collective exhale. Search teams combed the surrounding forests for weeks. Nothing, no footprints, no drag marks, no signs of struggle. It was as if the town, and everyone in it, had been lifted straight out of reality. Physicists proposed spatial collapse. Geologists suggested sinkholes on an unprecedented scale. Others whispered about mass hallucination. But none of the theories explained the shoe, or the voicemail, or the fact that every former resident's social media accounts stopped updating at exactly 11:48 p.m. 6 months later, a woman appeared at a hospital 3 states away. She had no identification. She was dehydrated, malnourished, and covered in shallow scratches. When asked her name, she answered without hesitation. Eleanor Whitby, the same Eleanor Whitby who had gone to bed in Hollow Creek at 11:47 p.m. Doctors said it was impossible. Eleanor had been declared missing, presumed dead, but she remembered everything. Almost, Eleanor described waking up in her bed, but the room had no walls. The house was gone. The town was gone, yet the people were still there, standing in the open space where their homes had been, confused and calling out to one another. Above them was not a sky. It was something closer, something watching, she said. The ground felt soft, like it was breathing. When the screaming started, the light changed, not brighter, deeper, like they were sinking upward. One by one, people vanished, not violently, not suddenly, but gently, like memories fading. Eleanor said she survived because she stopped moving. I closed my eyes, she whispered, and I remembered everything. I remembered the town. I remembered the names. I refused to forget. Eleanor aged rapidly after her return. Within weeks, her hair turned white. Her hands shook constantly. She refused to sleep in dark rooms. "They're still there," she said. "The ones who forgot themselves, the ones who let go." Before she died, Eleanor left behind a single handwritten sentence. Places disappear when no one is truly looking at them anymore. Today, the land where Hollow Creek once stood is fenced off. Officially, it's a protected environmental zone. Unofficially, no one stays after sunset. Locals report strange phenomena. Voices carried on the wind, lights moving beneath the grass, the sound of church bells with no church to ring them. Sometimes, objects appear. A mailbox, a photograph, a shoe. Always warm. Was Hollow Creek erased by a force beyond understanding, or did it simply slip through a crack in reality? A place too small, too quiet, too forgotten to remain anchored. No one knows. But if you ever drive down a lonely road at night, if the radio goes silent, if the world feels suddenly, unnaturally still, keep driving. Because some towns don't disappear. They wait, and they remember.